Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes suffered a high ankle sprain in last Sunday's win over the Cleveland Browns. Now the attention turns to this coming Saturday when the Chiefs play host to the Houston Texans. Will Mahomes be ready to play? Head coach Andy Reid.
This one's a little bit more day-to-day. Let's just see what he does, how he does, feels. He's always honest with me, so he's going to shoot me straight on it.
Mahomes says it'll be a group decision.
I'll get to work in practice and try to push it to see where I can get to. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to put our team in a bad position. So if I feel like I can play and go out there and win a football game, I'll play. And if I don't feel like that's the best case scenario, I'll let guys like Carson play. I mean, he's a guy that's won in this league as well. So it's just about pushing it this week, seeing where I'm at, and making the best decision then.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
If you've been putting off holiday shopping, you're not alone. But the holidays are next week, so it's time to kick things into high gear. Macy's Holiday Countdown Sale is here to make last-minute shopping easy with great deals on top gifts like cozy hat, scarf, and glove sets from Coach, Kate Spade, and more for $49.99. Boxed up and ready to give. Easy. So if you haven't gotten to everyone on your list yet, don't be too hard on yourself, but do shop Macy's ASAP. These deals end Thursday. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Smart is coming back. The days of just picking teams based on a coin toss are over. You need the latest stats, odds, and information. Make a plan. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Well, duh. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the two best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, listen, I don't know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, Sirius XM Channel 159.
Oh, the best hour every day now officially underway. It's Moneyline. It's a Wednesday. It's your boy DRS. And, of course, we are on a solo mission today to find some success out here in these streets, which means hot topics. We love to talk hot topics. That's what it's about on this show. That's the heat that we are going to bring. Now, it's me going into my YouTube account right now, and I see myself talking live. Ooh, in color? You might say, Donnie, how do I see you live in color on the SportsGrid Network right now? Well, you just go to SportsGrid On Demand on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You can watch the radio show live. You can also chime into the chat box. You can have fun. You can shoot off some winners, some losers eventually, and also some hot takes out here. That's the way you do it. If you're watching on the app, the SportsGrid app, one of the best absolute places to check in. It's fantastic. You can also follow your favorite host here. Download the SportsGrid app at all places that allow you to do things such as download apps. Also, if you're watching on SportsGrid.com, SportsGridRadio.com, all viable options. And, of course, if you're listening on the radio right now, Sirius XM Channel 159. So a solo mission's the best hour of your day. You know how we get down. I do want to start with some hot topics as we go here. And I'm just bringing up some stuff right now because I do want to talk about the NFL this weekend, a major difference in some of these quarterbacks that are starting and not starting, who we think the number one overall seeds in the NFC and AFC will end up being here because there is only 3 games left in the NFL regular season before we get to the playoff action. Can't wait to watch it turn out. It's going to be great. I love the playoffs. It is officially the best time of the year. Today is a Wednesday. Next Wednesday, people, there won't be a radio show. Oh, no. Well, it is Christmas, so there you go. But there will be Christmas football games, and your boy will be live in studio with Joe Lisi and Kevin Walsh, Pro Football Today, to get you ready for those games. But before we even get there, as I said, let's get to the hot topics. You know I love talking about things like this. The NBA. Donnie, why are you talking NBA? We'll get to the cup in just a few moments. But you know which sticks in my craw. And I feel like I was always on the right side of history talking about the NFL and their Pro Bowl. It was embarrassing. It was a waste of time. But since the NFL was so big, they were still going to have Pro Bowls because it made them money through the networks. And year after year, we laughed. Do you remember the one year where it was like they refused to tackle anybody on the field? And even Roger Goodell had to come out and say, if you guys are going to do this, we're just going to take this game away completely. And the game still went on for like another year, 2 or 3, I believe, at that time. But it got progressively worse. So they just scrapped it and said, you know what? We're going to play flag football, which I don't watch, but it's a much better product than what they were trying to put out and pass on as actual football. So now we look at the NBA and say, you know what? You're in the crosshairs now. And to be honest, it's pretty wild of how the NBA got way away from what they were supposed to be doing for an all-star game. Understand this. In the 1970s and the 1980s, where everybody just had, non-cable TV, you only got to watch your hometown team or the team that they're playing once they came into your home market. You didn't get to see a lot of the West Coast if you're on the East Coast. That's all changed at this time. We see everything now. And what I mean by is social media, highlights, Sports Center, sports talk radio. You get a lot of these players on a night-to-night basis, and the players themselves don't really care about the regular season. But that's besides the point. Let's just focus on why the NBA All-Star Game was great, and let's just say the 80s and the 1990s. As I just stated, a lot of times we don't get to see all the athletes in one place together, and maybe you're saying, look at that, the Portland Trailblazers. Oh, this guy Clyde Drexler's really good at this point. Hey, Jerome Kersey's out there. Or, man, I only get to see Magic Johnson one time a year when he comes into Philadelphia. Now at least I get to see him on the big screen. That's one thing. Also, NBA Saturday night back in the day, when I was in my early teens, everybody got together on that Saturday night and watched because the dunk competition was phenomenal and everything was outstanding. Everything was absolutely spectacular at that time. But we know things can't stay the same, right? It's like that in all sports. Same thing with the Pro Bowl, the NHL All-Star Game. Things change, and rightfully so, and you have to make adjustments for it. But the NBA has been known to say the theory that works the best is what? East versus West. You line up with the best 12 in the East, the best 12 in the West. You play a basketball game, and you find out who wins. There's going to be some crazy dunks, some awesome alley-oops, some solid defense at times, some three-point shots, but the superstars are there to entertain you. It's a win-win formula. Now we've gotten to the point, if you haven't read, and we talked about it this morning on the early line, Front Office Sports on X tweeted out basically a picture of LeBron James playing in the All-Star game. Also at the same time, looking at the actual format of the game. And it says, the NBA has unveiled a revamped format for the 2025 All-Star Game. 4-team tournament, which right away throws you off immediately. 3 teams of NBA All-Stars. The 4th team are the rising stars. So you do have the 24 NBA players split up over 3 different teams. Ridiculous. 4th team is the rising stars. Even more ridiculous in an All-Star game. Each game is the first to 40 points. The total prize pool is $1.8 million. So let me do this correctly. Let me get out my calculator. Let's go. So you have 3 teams of 8 NBA All-Star players. That's 24. And then I'm going to assume the rising star team is what? 12 players as well? So we'll go 12. So 24 plus 12, 36 players. The total prize pool, not per individual, the total prize pool is $1.8 million. So if we go $1.8 million divided by 36, that's $50,000. Now, I know it says the winning team gets $125, but let's just put how much of the prize pool is actually out there. $50,000 to some of these players making $50, $60, $70 million a year is meaningless. It's meaningless. This is ridiculous as it sets up. Because when you just want to watch the best players play basketball, this is what you get now, where people are going to tune in and have no idea what's going on. And then they're telling us that the all-star rosters will be drafted by Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith. Can we go any farther off the rails? I'm just being honest at this point. What is the point to having this year for the NBA anymore? If you couldn't just, honestly, you couldn't get the players to buy into, hey guys, you're stars. Yes, the game is fun, but can't we just play this at a high-level pickup game where you're going to get one-on-ones? That's fantastic. You're going to get deep three-point shots. We love to see it. You're going to get breakaway 2-on-0 dunks with alley-oops. Fantastic. But the whole game doesn't have to be that. How can't you just convince the players to play a little bit more defense as if they're playing a high-intensity pickup game? And you couldn't buy into that? And you couldn't get them to buy into that? So now we're down the path of the All-Star game this year is 4 teams. One is a Rising Stars team. It's not East versus West. You have no mutual interest in it. And if you're putting the betting markets in ahead of time to get them excited, nobody knows actually the rules or how this is going to play out. It's a disaster. And they've changed it so many different times. The Elam ending, the Kobe ending, whatever you want to talk about. Why don't we just go back to East versus West and tell the players, just play a high-intensity pickup game and go out there and have some fun. The people will watch that. Nonsense, man. Make me commissioner of the NBA. I'll fix it all, I promise. I'm Donnie Rightside, and I'll be right back.
We're the club you want to join, even though we'd have you as a member.
You'll like it here. We have munchies.
And the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The man accused of killing United Healthcare's CEO has been charged with murder as an act of terrorism. Luigi Mangione already was charged with murder in the December 4th killing of Brian Thompson, but the terror allegation is new. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg said Thompson's death on a Midtown Manhattan street, quote, was a killing that was intended to evoke terror, and we've seen that reaction. Thompson was shot while walking to a hotel where Minnesota-based United Healthcare, the United States' biggest medical insurer, was holding an investor conference. The Federal Reserve is set to announce a quarter-point cut to its benchmark rate from about 4.6% to roughly 4.3%. The latest move would follow a larger than usual half-point rate cut in September and a quarter-point reduction in November. Today's meeting could mark a shift to a new phase in the Fed's policies. Instead of a rate cut each meeting, the Fed is more likely to cut at every other meeting at most. The central bank's policymakers may signal that they expect to reduce their key rate just 2 or 3 times in 2025 rather than the 4 rate cuts they had envisioned 3 months ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Not to brag, but Progressive's Name Your Price tool is mankind's greatest tool ever. Even better than the wheel. Sure, without the wheel, we wouldn't have modern transportation or funny videos of dogs riding skateboards. But without the Name Your Price tool, we wouldn't have easy access to auto insurance options based on our budget. And, well, cars do need wheels. They also need insurance, and insurance never goes flat. Learn more about the greatest tool ever, the Name Your Price tool at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
You've heard of smart bombs,
Smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses.
Now you can add smart player.
Giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The NBA's in the crosshairs on a Wednesday. What a shame. People, man. There's a lot of factors on why the NBA is absolutely tanking in ratings. And we've talked about it so many times before, and even Kevin on early in the week. But the reason we continue to bring this up is the NBA is trying to make amends, but doing it in all of the wrong directions here. You don't have to tear down the start of the NBA. Those players make a lot of money. They'll continue to make a lot of money. And the ratings, they have enough to make money. So we're not in peril like it's, hey, the WNBA operates at a loss every single year. It's not the NBA. There's a reason why these franchises are going for record numbers. The players are making record numbers and the contracts are going up. But if you want those contracts to continue to go up, you must keep your market share here and not dip those ratings. That means if the ratings do dip, when you want to renegotiate your new packages with Netflix, with Amazon, with NBC, with ESPN, they're going to get more competitive with those negotiations if those ratings don't continue to rise. But it is simple. Again, I'm not advocating for doing away with the NBA All-Star Game because it's easily fixable. Have the players buy in. Have them buy into just playing a high-intensity pickup game, and we'll enjoy it for what it's worth and move on. You just don't need all this outlandish stuff, which ruins the actual All-Star weekend. The dunk competition stinks. The three-point competition is boring as hell. The skills competition is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. So who knows how you're going to fix NBA All-Star Game Saturday night, let alone the All-Star Game, which they are ruining in front of our face on a left and a right basis. Enough with that. It's stupid. All right. Let's continue with the NBA. We are going to talk football. We're going to talk some of these games that are coming up this weekend in college football, round number 1 of the college football playoffs. Big game on Thursday Night Football tomorrow between the Chargers and the Denver Broncos. Let's also talk about what we saw yesterday in the NBA and the thing I can't even understand. They wanted to put a lot of emphasis on the NBA Cup. Excuse me. If you are a die-hard NBA fan, you probably like just to have more basketball. And there are those people out there. But for the people like myself that pay absolutely no mind at all to the NBA before the football season ends, you want to try to draw people like me into the tent to try to watch. I'll tell you what doesn't happen. Where players don't play on back-to-backs and nobody really pays attention. Now the NFL is seizing every big holiday and making it their own outside of the NBA. There's simple fixes to that, but I just want to focus here. The NBA Cup was given to us last year by the NBA to say, we're going to ramp up progress in the NBA and hopefully get more eyeballs and attention on the NBA before we actually get to post-football season. Nobody asked for it, but they gave it to us. The one thing I can credit them with doing is make sure every team had a ridiculously crazy home court. So if you were just an average fan and you're flipping along, you see the crazy court, you know it's an NBA Cup game. How much of these players, take umbrage and we got to win the NBA Cup? Oh, we'll see. But last night, you did have a champion. And they played well throughout this tournament. The Milwaukee Bucks went 7-0 in Cup play, won the championship last night, easily beating a very good Oklahoma City team, which had scored at least 99 points per game this season until last night. They got held to 81. Great win for Giannis. Great win for the Bucks. They're 11-2 now in their last 13 games, and that's what's important. And you did see even like after the game, it's like, okay, we're going to raise this trophy and the confetti's going to fall. I didn't watch the game itself. I just saw some highlights. I don't know how many people were in the crowd. I don't even know if the crowd was excited because it wasn't even a home crowd. So maybe they were just there because they were in Vegas and they could catch a game. But the interesting things that they were talking about coming out of the Cup really raised an eyebrow for me to let you know what the players actually think about this. Now, the winning team got about $500,000 per player. They got a free trip to Vegas. That's all fine and good. But the NBA did bring in the full slate of champagne bottles and things you can party with in the locker room after the game that you see for a championship. You saw the Lakers last year. They popped some bottles. They had some champagne. They celebrate the victory, and they moved on with the rest of their season, which didn't turn out to an NBA championship like most teams hope it would be. But last night, there was a picture of all of that champagne on ice and chilled and ready to go for the Milwaukee Bucks. And Darvin Ham, who is now an assistant coach on the Milwaukee Bucks, who was the Lakers coach last year when they won the NBA in-season tournament, which is the Cup. He said, you know what? Think about it now. It's probably not best to, pop the champagne bottles because there's bigger things to happen. Which is exactly my point, is what Darvin Ham is telling you. They don't really care about the NBA Cup. Neither do the fans watching the sport. And the fact of the matter is that you try to slow play this NBA Cup into a big ratings win is laughable. Because you basically took the rest of the NBA out of the market for a full 7 days, I should say, and made us watch, if you wanted to, the NBA Cup. Which I got to say, on Saturday, I like sports. I do, as I told you. I think the NBA is awesome and compelling once you get to, late February, March, April, and into the playoffs. Playoffs in the NBA are sensational to watch and a lot of fun. The NBA outside of the playoffs, sometimes it's like nails on a chalkboard. It just is. And the NBA did it to themselves. But the fact of the matter is yesterday, they told you from an organizational standpoint, we're not going to pop the champagne bottles because really this doesn't mean anything. It's all about the NBA championship. And that is the right mindset to have. Because that's what it is about. The NBA Cup is meaningless. Nobody cares who won the NBA Cup. Not even the fans care about it. And you know how I know that also, where they don't pop the champagne bottles? Did you see Adam Silver after the game? You know what he was talking about, guys? We're going to look into maybe moving it out of Las Vegas. Wait a second. Las Vegas is the biggest destination city you could possibly have, where you wanted to make this not only just as a Sixers fan as I am, which, again, the Sixers haven't even competed in the NBA Cup yet. They just get waxed year after year before even trying to make it into it. But me as a Sixers fan, or I don't know any other Sixers fans, like, you know what? Before the season starts, I'm buying my tickets for the NBA Cup. I want to go to Vegas for that weekend and stay for the championship game. Ticket sales way down. Cheap as hell to get into the building. Where now they're going like, well, maybe we just play the Cup final in Vegas, and then we play the semifinals in your own gym. You see what they're telling you there? It's not worth it to have it at the destination city for two, because if you can't pick the teams, which the Lakers are a West Coast team, the Lakers have a big fan base in Las Vegas because it's proximity to Los Angeles. So if you have the Lakers in the semifinals or the Lakers in the finals, those people will turn out. But as you saw that championship game, nobody from Milwaukee was going to Vegas unless you have just unlimited funds as that one rich guy, right? OKC, nobody's going to Vegas for a chance to see OKC in a meaningless NBA Cup game. And that's why the NBA is like, oh, maybe I gotta look elsewhere. Trust me right now. If the NBA Cup doesn't work on a Vegas weekend and a championship game on a Tuesday night, it's never going to work. And once again, the fans didn't ask for this. Nobody wanted this. This was laid on the fans, and it looks like now, compared to the ratings in the NBA, in the toilet. We'll keep moving. There's a ton of hot topics. You know I'm getting after it.
We never stop giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24 hours a day.
7 days a week. Business hours are for losers.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1956, former Yankees shortstop Phil Rizzuto signs on as the team's radio and TV announcer.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to New York Yankee Baseball. I'm Bill.
The Scooter was a 7-time world champion and won the AL MVP in 1950 and was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1994.
And if dreams can come true for me.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Chinese researchers have created a robot that can identify plants just by touching them. Mimicking the delicate touch of human skin, identifying plant species with 97% accuracy, sensing moisture and texture machine vision can't see. The goal? An army of robot farm workers tirelessly monitoring, fertilizing, and applying pesticide to individual plants 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, increasing crop yields. Even identifying dangerous plant species.
That would be poison ivy.
Follow me at G. Capalbo on X, and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The Early Line.
There's a legitimate chance they get beat by the Texans this weekend. Even if they do win that game, they get to 14 at the Steelers, at the Broncos. They might lose those games anyway, Patrick Mahomes healthy or not. So that's not something I'm really wanting to buy into, even the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship. The Chiefs are good. They're even better at home when Patrick Mahomes is healthy. And a lot of these are now question marks at this point. So I'm not buying the Chiefs. I'm not.
It's The Early Line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network.
There, Sporto.
We know you've been hurt in the past. Big stations with big promises lied to you, suckered you in.
We don't do that.
We're the real deal.
You can take our information to the bank. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. And now, back to Moneyline with Kevin Walsh and Donnie Rightside.
Who's having fun? I'm having fun. I love it. It's a late morning here on the SportsGrid Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. Solo missions on a Wednesday. Hot topics is what we get in. Because, you know, the NFL is coming up this weekend. Saturday showcase, Saturday college playoff games. One of the better weekends we're going to see to end the season. Love it. 3 games left in the NFL. It's a sad time, but also a glorious time knowing that we have football playoffs on the horizon, like college football and the NFL. But still some topics come up that you want to talk about, which, again, I'm going to go over 2 more here. One still is in the NBA, where Adam Silver said he's going to take it into effect. I'm like, hey, this 3-point volume is kind of interesting. which everybody in the NBA now understands. The more three-point shots you shoot, the better chance you have to have a victory in a game, which the Boston Celtics can just reinvent the wheel and say, is there a chance we can go the entire season without making a layup or a dunk and just make three-point shots on our way to a back-to-back championship? I don't think that has anything to do with it. Three-point shots are fun. We like those. Can bring you back into the game. It takes a lot of skill. And from a betting standpoint, anytime three-point shot props, fantastic stuff. So much fun to root on. Better more than less. So I don't think Adam Silver is wrong at checking into it. That's his job as in, they call him the commissioner, I guess, or is that not allowed in the NBA? The NBA, we'll call him the NBA commissioner now. I don't think that's wrong. He has to check into that stuff. He's making errors on a lot of things he's doing right now. And as a CEO, you're only judged on one thing. Is the revenue growing, which it is? But are there any strike points in the future that might absolutely affect that money and those dollars coming in? Those are the questions that you have. So for me, I say, yeah, there's issues on the horizon with absolute tanking ratings due to the product on the court. So we'll see if they shake out of it, and we'll see what happens. But yes, three-point shots, I don't have any issues with it. NBA Cup stinks. All-Star Weekend, ridiculous. Just get rid of it at this point. Why waste any time? But also, let's get to some other sports here, because I love to put on the haters hat on a Wednesday and really get after it. I woke up this morning, and usually what I do is I'll come down. I have two TVs that are sitting in front of my face in the morning, other than the computer monitors. One is usually on. When I click on, it's already digital. Goes right to the SportsGrid network on Samsung TV. Goes right to it, and I watch. And a lot of times the replay of Moneyline is on when I'm getting ready for the show between 6 to 7 a.m. But that usually stays on. But on the other TV, it's usually any combination of the NFL Network, ESPN. You get the point. So ESPN was on one of my TVs, and I looked up, and I was like, oh, look at this. Golf. So I didn't know golf was going on right now. It turns out it was the Crypto.com showdown. And I think they got this right on the premise. Instead of having like Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady or whoever playing, they actually went the best golfers in the world. Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy of the PGA Tour taking on Koepka and DeChambeau, essentially of LIV Golf. I go, well, that's interesting. But back to the original point. I had absolutely no idea this was going on, and I'm in the sports business. Did anybody else see that at all, by the way? Did anybody watch this last night? Quite frankly, I don't even know if it was actually bettable. But you had them at, I think, Shadow Creek in Las Vegas, which looked like it was freezing cold, by the way, which always gets me sometimes in Vegas. I know it can get chilly there at this time of year. But nobody knew this was being played. Remember the big deal when it was maybe a decade ago at this point, I want to say? Phil Mickelson versus Tiger Woods, like a $10 million, $20 million, $50 million, whatever $100 million it was there. They actually were selling that on pay-per-view, and they messed up the pay-per-view so bad that they actually had to refund all the money anyway and just put it out for free for the rest of the tournament after the rest of the round, after hole number 3 or 4. That had amp up. That had money on it. That had, we're going to be betting. That had trash talking. That had two of the pinnacle superstars of the sport. And now we're, let's just say, 10 years down the road, and it's so bad that you actually went back to putting in true superstars, and I don't think a damn near person watched it. Like, even when, like, a producer's going to set up a show for me, where, like, I'm going over the notes pre-show, it wasn't in there at all. Shout out, by the way, in the chat box here, Endless Joey and also Akbar, having some fun out there. Want to get in the chat box, SportsGrid on demand on the YouTube channel. Watch the show, enjoy the show, reach out to the show. But it used to be where, like, that golf tournament had some gumption to it, had people talking about it. You have maybe the top 4 golfers in the world going head-to-head, and it wasn't even in the show notes this morning to even bring it up as a minute topic just to fill a minute or two of a 3-hour show. It's amazing. It really is. How sometimes sports leagues / television networks just don't understand when the jig is up. Stop trying to milk the public. We're not buying this nonsense. We're not buying this crap out here. Keep it real. Keep it what we want to watch. Unbelievable stuff. More hot topics on the way. Let's flip it over to some football next, right here on Moneyline.
You're listening to your source of sports gaming strategies and information.
We call it the winning edge.
It helps make the odds even.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes suffered a high ankle sprain in last Sunday's win over the Cleveland Browns. Now the attention turns to this coming Saturday when the Chiefs play host to the Houston Texans. Will Mahomes be ready to play? Head coach Andy Reid.
This one's a little bit more day-to-day. Let's just see what he does, how he does, feels. He's always honest with me, so he's going to shoot me straight on it.
Mahomes says it'll be a group decision.
I'll get to work in practice and try to push it to see where I can get to. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to put our team in a bad position. So if I feel like I can play and go out there and win a football game, I'll play. And if I don't feel like that's the best case scenario, I'll let guys like Carson play. I mean, he's a guy that's won in this league as well. So it's just about pushing it this week, seeing where I'm at, and making the best decision then.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I love spreading joy with gifts this time of year, but I try not to spread my budget too thin. Luckily, Kohl's has come through for me once again. I just went and used a 25% off coupon to score so many great gifts under $20, like cozy pajamas and fleece, amazing gift sets, and beauty must-haves. So if you're looking to give more for less this season, get to Kohl's. Select styles. Offers end December 24th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Flo here from Progressive to tell you how you get more than great savings with us. You get customer service access through our mobile app, online chat, or by phone.
That's a lot of ways I can get in touch with you. I see what's going on here. You can't name favorites, but I'm your #1 customer.
Actually, we offer all our customers these ways to contact us.
I'm sure you give just any customer your personal
company
contact info.
Well, you did call us more than any other customer this year. So in that sense, you are our #1 customer.
Get help from Progressive through the website, app, chat, or phone. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Be the master of your domain.
Get the SportsGrid mobile app so now you can get the winning edge while your wife is in a dressing room trying on stuff while you wait patiently on the uncomfortable chair. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Told you we get to some NFL talk right here on Moneyline. Donnie Wright's out on solo mission Wednesday afternoon right here on the SportsGrid Network. We do see some quarterback changes out here and some interesting ones. Let's go back because I just want to bring up last week's NFL action. And on Monday Night Football, we saw a doubleheader. Vikings-Bears, Falcons-Raiders. Vikings beat the Bears 30-12. That game stayed under the total. The Falcons beat the Raiders 15-9 and stayed under the total. Fresh off the heels of a performance the last Thursday night in primetime, where it was rainy and nobody even scored a touchdown between the 49ers and the Rams. It's not really where I'm going, but just saying, tomorrow night's Thursday Night Football game, 42.5, I'm going under in that game as well. We'll get to that. We'll handicap it much more tomorrow, but that's my thought process there. Short work week, and also, I do want to bring up a topic in that game. We'll get to in just a moment, but I don't want to lose my train of thought. Quarterbacks and the changes that are going to be made. The Bears are playing terrible football. They were 4-2 on the season. They lost 8 straight games. Now they're 4-10. 0-7 on the road, got cracked by the Minnesota Vikings. But Caleb Williams, even though he isn't progressing all that well, they didn't do him any favors. Bad head coach Matt Eberflus, who's the defensive coordinator. Shane Waldron, an awful offensive mind. That's who you brought in to save your franchise with a franchise quarterback. Didn't work out. Gone fired. Sam Darnold of the Vikings, playing good football. They'll head into the playoffs. They're 12-2. We don't have any issues there. The Raiders, what did you want them to do? Desmond Ridder was going to be your starting quarterback. He looked terrible just about that entire game, but at least he finished with 208 yards and a touchdown. What did you want him to do? Win a football game for the Raiders, who came into that game 2-11? He wasn't going to do that. The question comes up on the opposite side with the Atlanta Falcons, who did win that football game, guys, by the way, and improved to 7-7. One game back on the season now of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They hold the tiebreaker against the Buccaneers. There's a chance that they can get into the playoffs, win a division, and get a home game. That's what the Falcons are focused on. Whether or not you think the Falcons are good, those are the facts. The Falcons yesterday made the move from Michael Penix now to be your starting quarterback as opposed to Kirk Cousins. That's a big move. Why? Because I watched that game on Monday night. And I always like to be truthful because the Falcons play a lot of 1 o'clock games. I'm in studio until 1 o'clock with over an hour and a half drive home, pick up some food. I'm home by late third quarter, checking up, seeing the highlights, and running back some of the numbers. And, I didn't actually even know, because I didn't bet the Falcons all that much, even prop-wise. that Kirk Cousins coming into that Monday Night Football game, and so I was doing research on which props should I like, what should I do. Hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in 4 weeks. That doesn't even make sense. Like, Kirk Cousins is routinely throwing 30-plus touchdowns every single year in the NFL as he was dominating in Minnesota. Dominating record-wise or winning Super Bowls? Not necessarily, but he was a good quarterback, which is why he got over $100 million guaranteed on a massive 4-year contract to go play for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Kirk Cousins was coming off an injury, which as an older quarterback in his late 30s might be a little bit tougher to get over. It was Achilles injury. But he goes to Atlanta. Doesn't look good early on, but you figured he's working his way back in. He should be just fine. Now, the fact that we're lining him up in football games against one of the worst overall defenses, but the worst coverage defense in the NFL, I figured that handicap on Monday night was pretty easy. And I said to myself, I'm not even going to take Kirk Cousins to score 2 touchdowns through the air. How about just 1? And he got that on a 30-yard touchdown to Drake London. Excuse me, I was going to say Drake May. Drake London down the sideline. Yes, the Falcons did win 15-9. Kirk Cousins was abhorrently bad in that game. How about that word? QBR ratings go from 100 to 0. It's a metric that ESPN uses, and it's probably a little bit easier to explain than a passer rating. It just means on any given play, are you making the right decision? Like your QBR rating doesn't drop because you threw a 32-yard laser touchdown pass that was dropped in the back of the end zone. Your passer rating goes down on that because it doesn't take into account. It doesn't know who dropped the football, bad throw, what have you. But QBR is going to rate that as a good play, and that's what you should have done. So you're telling me basically 91% of the time Kirk Cousins wasn't executing. That's what you're telling me in this instance? And I believe it. Anybody who watched that game, you had 2 running backs carry the football 34 total times in that game for 168 yards. You squeaked it out. Kirk Cousins only threw 17 times in that game, completed 11 passes for 112 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. You might say, like, well, they didn't need to. This was in a dome against a dead football team with their one pass rusher who's legitimate in Max Crosby, who didn't play because he's down for the season with an ankle injury that he got surgery on. And you couldn't do any damage against that defense. And quite frankly, just watching the snaps that came back to him that were just too hard or fast for him to catch, the inability to even move around at all in the pocket, and the arm strength looked like a whipped noodle out there. I tweeted at the same time, this needs to be the last game that Kirk Cousins plays for the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't think they would make a move because so many times, as Terry Fontenot believes their GM, who's a horrible GM, will be like, you know what? If I have to bench Kirk Cousins, I have to answer to Arthur Blank, who's my owner. And he's going to want to know why I struck a check for $100 million in guaranteed money, roughly $50 million a year, and for a 4-year contract that after 14 games, I got to give up on this guy because I whiffed so badly as a general manager. We got to now go to our rookie quarterback that we drafted in Michael Penix. But I don't even think going into the like, you could be mad at your general manager as an owner. But the issue was you signed Kirk Cousins, who is clearly still injured and not over it, who looks like a shell of his former self. But I love the move by the Falcons. You could have easily hid behind, still in the playoff race. We won. We have the New York Giants on deck. We expect to win that game. If we can somehow pull off 2 more victories this season and the Buccaneers can drop a game, we're in the playoffs and Kirk Cousins, our veteran, and off we go into the sunset. Even if we lose a playoff game, we'll say we made the playoffs, we won our division. That's what we were supposed to do. Because for me, coming into the season, the Atlanta Falcons were the best team in the NFC South, bar none for me. Yes, I understand Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay. They brought the gang back. They got injured right away, and it looked like it was going to be an easy divisional win for the Atlanta Falcons, who somehow just have slipped up in the past month. Why? Because their quarterback stinks. But I do applaud the franchise for saying to themselves, how can we rectify this situation? Just take Kirk Cousins out of the situation. And nobody's answering for money going, he makes this much money. There's no way he's not going to play. He has to play for us at least 2 years, and that's the end of the story. Time for Michael Penix to step up, and also doing it at the right moments. Your season is still able to be salvaged. Say what you want about them getting into the playoffs, if they're even going to be able to win a first-round game against either what looks like it's probably going to be the Minnesota Vikings or the Green Bay Packers. Forget about that and remove that from your mind. The decision is right because the Atlanta Falcons' upcoming game is against the New York Giants. They could have very easily said, Kirk hasn't played well in losses to the Saints, the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Vikings. And quite frankly, still didn't play well enough against the Raiders, but we did win that game. We can't pull our starting quarterback off of a win. We're 7-7. The Giants are on deck. Great move by the Atlanta Falcons. Because what this does now is say, okay, regardless of who is that quarterback, they will beat the New York Giants. There's no question in my mind. I don't see the Giants rising up if it's Tommy DeVito cleared from a concussion or Boyle at quarterback. The Giants are actively not trying to win football games over the past 3. And by the way, if I was the Mara family, I would have fired Joe Shane and I would have fired Brian Daboll immediately because they think that they win a game or two, they're going to try to save their jobs. That's ludicrous. They need to lose, talking about the Giants, every game they play to try to get a quarterback. But let's not sidetrack ourselves here talking about the Atlanta Falcons because that's what's up. They're going to beat the Giants. If Michael Penix looks okay in that game for his first career NFL start, that's a major advantage than going on the road to take on the Commanders, which, again, will be a must-win game. You could have taken the easy way out and played Kirk Cousins in this game, no doubt about it, and you would have won under any circumstances. Kirk could have thrown no touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. You probably still beat the Giants by a touchdown or more. That's how bad the Giants are. But I applaud the Falcons for making a proactive move. Even though they messed up their draft and they messed up their salary cap, there's still a chance that they can win their division. Why? Because it's a bad division. That's why. And if Michael Penix shows that he has the chops to step into an NFL environment and pick up a win here, I love that. I can't wait to see him go up against the Commanders when they get by the New York Giants. More football talk next. It's a Football Wednesday on the SportsGrid Network. We'll be right back.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you. Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Men's top 25 hoops. Number 1, Tennessee improved to 11-0 with an 84-36 win over Western Carolina. Number 2, Auburn, 100-59 winners over Georgia State. Number 5, Duke beat George Mason 68-47. Number 7, Florida with a 90-84 win over North Carolina. Number 17, Ole Miss beat Southern 74-61. Number 18, UCLA with a big 111-75 victory over Prairie View A&M. Number 20, Michigan State, 77-58 winners over Oakland. Number 22, Dayton beat UNLV 66-65. In overtime, South Carolina nipped Clemson 91-88. Cup final was last night in Las Vegas. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a triple-double, leading Milwaukee to a 97-81 win over Oklahoma City. Antetokounmpo named the tournament MVP.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I love spreading joy with gifts this time of year, but I try not to spread my budget too thin. Luckily, Kohl's has come through for me once again. I just went and used a 25% off coupon to score so many great gifts under $20, like cozy pajamas and fleece, amazing gift sets, and beauty must-haves. So if you're looking to give more for less this season, get to Kohl's. Select styles, offers end December 24th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
This holiday season, Straight Talk Wireless is letting you say yes a lot more with real unlimited data. Yes to sharing pics of the ugliest holiday sweaters. Yes to checking weather on the go for surprise sledding trips. And with a free phone at sign up, let the yes-tivities begin.
No way!
Yes way. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart or straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 1/5/25 while supplies last at participating stores. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation on select single-line plans. Limit of 2 phones per customer. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
If SportsGrid was a burrito, we'd be the one with steak and carnitas packed so full every bite made your cheeks poof out like Dizzy Gillespie, so the name stuck and now even your mother calls you Dizzy. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Right back at it here. It's a Wednesday. Looking at a lot of action topics in the NFL, which also, going down that quarterback route, there's one thing, like the Tennessee Titans, truth be told for me entering into the season, I said, this is going to be interesting the way it plays out because their overall roster was very talented. They spent money in the free agent market, made some moves, so it said, you know what? We're going to let our young quarterback see if he can absolutely spin it this year. And if we have our future guy, this is one way that we can check. And that future guy they hoped for was Will Levis. Now, Will Levis Hasn't worked out all that well here, people. Let's be honest. 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Every single game you watch Will Levis, you know for sure there's going to be multiple plays where you go, you just can't do this in this spot. And Will Levis absolutely does it. You saw the opening game against the Chicago Bears, where he was just throwing interceptions all over the place. And then at one moment where they had the lead, I'm going to go down, I'm just going to throw it directly to a Bears play, and away the Bears go with a victory. Even his coach, seemingly jumping off the sideline at times, screaming, "What are you doing?" There was no instance where Will Levis has played well at all this year. Texans end up beating him. I don't know how they did, but he threw for 278 and 2. That was the pinnacle of his season right there. But most games, they're getting smashed and or blown out, which includes the last game against the Bengals. Enough was enough. No touchdown passes, 3 interceptions, 89 yards passing. It's done. And that'll be the last time that Will Levis plays for the Titans. And you might be out there going like, that's the right decision. We just talked about Michael Penix Jr. of the Atlanta Falcons getting the start. Me going like, yeah, that's absolutely the right decision here. Put the young quarterback in. Let's see if he can spin. They're in a playoff atmosphere against an easy Giants team that you can dispose of and get himself a little bit of NFL acumen, if you will, so he can play in that game and then have his first career start out of the way before you take on the Commanders, who will be a de facto playoff game for both you and maybe the Commanders at that time. But Will Levis, I disagree with this decision. And you might say, Donnie, how the hell can you disagree with the decision on benching Will Levis? You just told him he's terrible, he stinks. Isn't that the point now? Like, if you are right now in a absolute race to the bottom in the NFL to get the best draft pick possible, you look at the teams with 2 and 3 wins. Raiders, Giants, Patriots, Jaguars, Panthers, Titans, and Browns in that order. The Titans are right there at 3 wins. Will Levis is the reason why you have 3 wins on the season and 11 losses. So you have 3 teams on the way out at the Colts, which Will Levis wasn't going to win that football game. I don't care how bad Anthony Richardson was playing. Will Levis would have lost that game on the road. Then you take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who the Titans play on the road, who it is Mac Jones now, but at least they're showing somewhat of a little bit of an effort, and that's a road game. Will Levis no doubt would have lost that. The interesting one would have been the Texans in the final game. The Texans have already clinched this division, so they're probably not playing for anything, and he might have been competitive enough to win that. So let's just say you're looking at the final 3 games with a maximum, if you're lucky, of 1 win out of Will Levis. Then you say goodbye to him in the offseason. You might say, well, no. He's still young. He's relatively cheap as a second-round pick. He can't even be your backup quarterback, because a backup quarterback is meant to come into the game as a veteran, guide the offense, and just not make mistakes. Not make the big play, but just not make the big mistakes. Will Levis will make every mistake you ask him not to make in the biggest of moments, even as a backup quarterback. But if you continue to play Will Levis, you know you're going to lose the next 2 games automatically. And I'm not saying Mason Rudolph is anything short of a miracle worker coming in, but he's way more competent than Will Levis is. So I understand, like, new head coaches, which they have in Callahan down in Tennessee. New general managers, quite frankly, like Carthon, they have in Tennessee. They're trying to just pick up victories so they don't have to go tell their owner, hey, it just didn't work out this year. Or we were fighting down the stretch when we won 2 out of our final 3. You need a quarterback. You need to tank. You need to get the best possible player you can, and winning football games at the end of the season is not going to help that. So I disagree. I'd run Will Levis out the next 3 games. I'd even tell Will Levis, hey, Will, if you ever want to work in this league again, you better lose these next 3 games for us. And we'll put in a good word at your next franchise of how you listen to the coaching staff, you worked hard, it just didn't work out, but you deserve a second chance. You want to go out and beat teams like the Texans on the final game of the season? Throw you out the window at this point, right? As the saying would go. But we know that's not going to be the case. But I did want to just bring that up. And also, another fun one in Cleveland, where you're talking about quarterback situations. Remember how much fun, like, Jameis Winston was thrown out of Tampa Bay because of his roller coaster play. 1 million touchdowns with 1 million interceptions doesn't cancel each other out. That's horrendous quarterback play. Jameis then went to New Orleans and didn't listen to the coaching staff as basically a malcontent at quarterback, which he found his way out of there. Then he comes into Cleveland, sort of buys time, wins over favor, wins a crazy game against Pittsburgh, and here come the national pundits and accounts once again. Jameis deserves a shot, man. We don't have to do anything with Deshaun Watson anymore. Just let Jameis spin, man. It's a cheap option. We can win football games next year. Oh, yeah? Well, then why is DTR, the starting quarterback now for the Cleveland Browns. One word, stinks. That's Jameis Winston. When you rely his history in the NFL, one word comes up, stinks. That's what he does. He stinks. But my goodness, you know who's upset about that? Jerry Jeudy's like, man, I'm finally eating in the NFL because they got a quarterback that doesn't even have a brain cell in his head and will continue to throw in the double, triple coverages at the worst possible times. But as a wideout, we love that. We love that. Sure, we want to win football games as wideouts. Sure, we get upset when the quarterback throws interceptions. But you know when we don't get upset? When quarterbacks throw interceptions when they're throwing the football to us. Because we just want the football at any time, anywhere, any moment. But Jameis Winston moving up, not going to make any difference. Deshaun Watson will be your quarterback next year because you can't cut him because that cap is ridiculous as well. Like Cleveland's just like the what they used to call it there? The factory of sadness. Like that's Cleveland. That's exactly what Cleveland is. That sports fan base as a football franchise deserves so much better. Like Cleveland bleeds football. I mean, they have some of the best fans in football, and they get repeatedly punched in the mouth every time they want to buy in or believe they can have some fun in a football season. It's a shame what happens here. Horrible ownership group, horrible general manager. This is what you get. But then, honey, you want to make a playoff run here? They won some games. Yeah, imagine if you would have just kept Baker Mayfield instead of all these charades. You'd probably be back in the playoffs again this year. Instead, you're on the outside looking in. One more segment to go. More banner topics to talk about. It's your boy DRS. It's Wednesday. It's the SportsGrid Network right here on Sirius XM Channel 159.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Yeah. Bad boys, what you gonna do?
It's a choice.
Roll the dice
or listen to us.
Luck is finding a good parking spot. Strategy is getting the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime, on the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. SportsGrid Radio presents Gridiron Greats.
Running back Walter Payton set the then NFL rushing title in 1984, passing Jim Brown. Sweetness was a rare combination of power, speed, and agility. In 1999, Payton lost his life at the age of 45. Former teammate Dan Jiggins.
He was, at all stops along the way, the most ferocious competitor that I've ever seen.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Moneyline.
As an Eagles fan, John Merrick, stay the course. Have patience. Try to turn this team into like the Steelers. Keep your coach around for 10 to 15 years because we're getting this type of productivity out of that coaching staff. As an Eagle fan, as a Commanders fan, as a Cowboys fan, make them all come back and say it wasn't their fault. I hope you do that.
Catch Moneyline with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. On SportsGrid. Sirius XM Channel 159.
You're listening to the voice of authority.
Sports gaming strategies and information on daily sporting events.
In other words,
information you can take to the bank. We are your trusted source for gaming, odds,
and more.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Oh, we got some good football this weekend, people. We're just getting started. We're just getting excited here at this point. You got a good Thursday night football game tomorrow, which will handicap all throughout the network, certainly, for most of the day. That's Denver and Los Angeles, but I got to tell you, it didn't work out for Sunday was unbelievable. Monday gave a little bit of money back. Had a couple different things, which should have hit, didn't hit, no big deal. But I got to tell you, Thursday, I'm getting nervous for, guys. Denver and Los Angeles, I think it's an under game. You have wide receivers you can't trust. 7 running backs that could all be the lead backs on their teams here. 2 quarterbacks, if I think it stays under the defense, who on Pro Football Focus is rated number 3 and number 4, could be an issue here. I'm worried about that. But let's take a look at the bright spots. Friday, college football playoff night number 1. Indiana and Notre Dame. Should be fun watching that game. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be excited for it there. Because as you know me, I think Notre Dame is one of the better teams in the country, the way they closed. Just the way they played football, teams hammered them. But Indiana is so interesting because they didn't play a single good team all season long. Then played Ohio State, who's a good football team, and got crushed. And that game was on the road. This game for Indiana, again, was on the road. Feels like they haven't played in like 16 weeks, these two teams. But we'll see how it plays out. Colder conditions in Notre Dame, in the state of Indiana. Should be a fun one to watch. Then we flip it over to Saturday's action, which you do have 2 NFL games. Houston and Kansas City is interesting. Kansas City's quarterback is listed as to be determined, but Patrick Mahomes, on an estimated report yesterday, did practice in full. We'll see what he does today, if he's limited or he goes full. If he goes full today, he's definitely playing on Saturday. The question mark was, he gets that high ankle sprain, talking about Patrick Mahomes. Is he going to miss this Saturday's game and then also the game on Wednesday? And then you say, okay, I'll play the final game if we need it or not. Looks like he might be playing in this game, which is incredible. Now talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, went from underdogs about 2.5 points to favorites across the board now at 3. And then you have Pittsburgh and Baltimore Saturday afternoon, 4:30. Wonderful, fantastic. Don't even have to wait till night to get 2 good football games on Saturday. That's a home run. But also, guys, we do have the college football playoff on Saturday as well, as we just told you. Notre Dame favored by roughly a touchdown over Indiana. That's a good appetizer. But then we get Penn State at noon on Saturday. 25-degree temperatures, 10-mile-an-hour winds, nice chilly, frosty conditions in Happy Valley to welcome SMU. Then 4 o'clock, you get Clemson and Texas from Darrell K. Royal Field Stadium, whatever you want to call it. Favored by 12 points across the board at most places you pick up. Shout out Jordan for being in the chat box here, just checking in. Then you get Tennessee and Ohio State from the shoe. Maybe the best game overall of the weekend as it sets up. 24 degrees at kickoff. Wind speed 6 miles an hour. Not much. Precipitation, the forecast, none. Just a cold night in Columbus to welcome in the Tennessee Volunteers. That's good stuff. So you want to talk about a football Saturday that looks so spectacular. I think we got it. But I did ask Joe Lisi this morning when we had him on for the final half hour on the early line what he thought about Indiana Notre Dame being the Friday night game as opposed to being like 4 games on a Saturday. So how would you fit that in, I guess? Some of the games would overlap. Maybe like a 12, 4, 6, then 8. You know what I mean? I don't think you had to stretch that night game out to 9 o'clock, but I think that would have worked better to sort of take over. But the NFL is sort of interrupting their Saturday afternoon by putting on 2 bangers right in the middle of the day. But anybody like us, what's up, Chris Warren? I know you're shouting out, loving that game this weekend. Clemson, Texas, the battle of the orange versus the burnt orange out here. So the people are checking in here, and rightfully so. But it's a great day for football overall. If you love the NFL, you get it. If you love college football, you get it. And who doesn't love both of them? We waited for a long time to get a college football playoff, to have multiple games with meaning in December, as opposed to these stupid bowl games that are going to continue again. Stop it. Great football weekend ahead. And the SportsGrid Network is certainly going to have you covered on all of those. So many sides, so many things to check out. Prop bets now that you can bet on between these teams. A lot of stuff, a lot of fun, man. This is the time that we waited for here. It really is. It's just a shame that Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State are going to be the only home games for the college football playoff. Like, if you're the higher seed, you just be home. You should be at home the entire way. And I've said that multiple times, by the way. That's not anything new. But I do love the fact that we are going to start with great football, or at least meaningful football, I should say, on Thursday night between 2 teams out in the AFC West battling for a playoff spot. Going to go a long way determining who actually gets that playoff spot, to a Friday night college football playoff game at Notre Dame, to 3 playoff games on Saturday in college football, 2 NFL games on Saturday, which look to be very good games, and then a full slate on Sunday, followed then by Monday Night Football, and then we go off into the week next week. We have Christmas, which we have a full slate of NFL games as well. Man, it doesn't get any better than this, man. Absolutely fantastic. For JP behind the wheels of steel, your boy Donnie Wright's out on the mic here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on Moneyline.
everywhere.
You can get SportsGrid on the radio, TV, the internet.
We've got your number, Sporto.
That's